Friends and subscribers, this is China News for October 2015. Happy Halloween, Day of the Dead, or any other relevant holiday wherever you're at. Here in China, things are really cooking as we see things turning and turning some more. European Union sides with United States on South China Sea incident. This comes as no surprise, as we know that the veil of the Western powers, or the banking cabal that controls the Western powers, are all under the same agenda. And this should be no surprise, like I said, that they're siding with the United States when it comes to South China Sea and the building of islands and dredging of material to build new islands, airstrips, military installations, and so forth. Vietnam and the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, Brunei, all of them contest China's sovereignty over parts of the world's busiest sea lanes. So this has a lot of implications because, like I said before, these sea lanes coming up to the Paracel Islands have more to do with military, with drilling, fishing, cargo coming in and out of the region. So a lot of money involved really with the whole situation, and control of those waters and being able to police those waters. So basically would allow the Chinese to say who can come and who cannot, build ports and so forth, and perhaps charge a tax or some kind of fee for coming to those waters and porting at those cities that are controlled by Chinese companies. So again, more to do really with business and what you think militarily, but tit for tat, this has been going on for a long time. As you know, Chinese ships had touched off the coast of Alaska last month. This month it's been all about South China Sea and stirring the pot and making things more interesting. As I've said before, if there is a worldwide conflict that breaks out, there'll be several theaters of action, one of them being in the South China Sea. So we'll keep an eye on this, and anything that occurs in the South China Sea, you can bet will not be by accident. China lifts one-child policy amid worries over graying population. This is a little bit of a surprise for myself, actually, because ever since I've been here, all I've heard is rhetoric to the point of population size is too big, one-child policy, you know, the whole forced abortions that have been going on here for decades that the Chinese government does not want to talk about, but is probably still going to happen in some provinces. But this comes as a little bit of a surprise to me. They can see that one-child policy is going to leave them with labor shortages, especially in some of the skilled labor market sectors that China is going to be moving into rapidly here. The reform will slightly slow down China's aging society, but it won't reverse it. It will ease labor shortages in the long term, but in the short term it may increase the shortages because more women might stop work to give birth, or multiple births. So what does this say about China's aims to become more self-sufficient with their labor, be moving into high-tech areas, and understanding that the burden for the aging population, that's going to put a lot of stress not only on the local governments but also the younger population that has to pay or supplement some of their income as they grow older and people live longer. So any of you out there who feel you're up to the task, China, Japan, and many other countries around the world are looking for sperm donors. China signed $17 billion deal to buy 130 Airbus planes from the manufacturer. This steps up competition between Boeing and Airbus. Has been going on for quite a while. The A330 jetliners will be partially or completely built in Chinese factories. So some of you may be asking, why would China be buying these planes when China's already starting to manufacture some bigger planes through their own firms in China? Well, this has a lot more to do with technology transfer than it is for the planes themselves, as these big planes will be built in Chinese factories and they'll get sweetheart deals to use slave labor to build them. And likewise, the Chinese firms that will be building these planes in cooperation with the foreign firms and the factory workers, will be stealing intellectual property as they've done so many times before. You can see the writing on the wall. Eventually, China will probably be coming out with planes that are based on tech designs for Airbus and or Boeing. It's in the cards. Another interesting story, Google just made its first ever direct investment in a Chinese startup. Now this is a way for Google to get back into the mainland full force without being under the restrictions and some of the chaos that had been forced upon it in 2010 and before by the Chi-Coms. Now Google historically has had a very testy relationship with China, to say the least, because as you may or may not know, Google is essentially a government agency. They spy for the United States, and the startup money that was given to Google and the preferential treatment back in the day was not by accident, okay? They're using the data from Google searches, they're using the data from Google Mail and other services to cooperate with intelligence agencies, let's put it that way. And it didn't take Edward Snowden to figure that out, but he just basically verified what is the actual truth. So how can Google get back into the mainland and spy? And likewise, how can China take advantage of all of Google's technology and potential marketing clout? That's the trick here. And it seems like the solution, at least preliminary, is to have a Chinese company be a partner company with Google and use some of Google's intellectual property and other services and other type of consulting so that it can control the flow of data and Google can get paid, everyone gets paid, and everybody goes home happy, at least for the short term. We'll keep an eye on this. This is definitely going to change going forward. As we know, Motorola is now owned by a Chinese company, and the Moto 360 is the first Chinese device, Android Wear device, to hit Chinese stores. Okay, so it is developed by Motorola and Google, and it hits Chinese stores. They're talking about opening up a application store online there, and it's going to be interesting to see how they cooperate and how they're able to take advantage, both sides on this. What's interesting is that for Putin's recent visit to China, they had some propaganda videos that were released, and one girl actually saying that she would like to marry a man like Vladimir Putin. She better be careful what she wishes for, because that marriage would be even more of a nightmare than marrying one of the Chinese boys that are like 3 to 1 in population throughout China. If she wants to be a cook girl or a house slave, then she can go ahead and marry a man like Putin. However, these visa policies that are being implemented and are being lifted are part of a golden sunrise between China and Russia in the face of growing tensions in Syria and in Ukraine. And as this shapes up and more of these countries begin to take sides, we can see that potential treaties will come out of it. Here's a couple of Chinese chaps here, translated in Russian, that are explaining how great Russia is and how they are comrades. Comrades not only intellectually, but perhaps comrade at arms. We'll have to wait and see how this develops, but just to let you know that they're issuing some outrageous propaganda here, and it makes us all sound like that China and Russia have been 100% perfect chums throughout history, which has not been the case, by the way. If you look back in history, there's been a lot of conflict between China and Russia, and they've never fully trusted each other, going back to the days when Mao had asked for nuclear weapons from Russia, and Russia said nay. Girl born in China seeks change in U.S. Constitution so she can run for president. This is all taken as a joke in local and international media, but this is really more serious than what you might think, because as you may know, United States already has a Kenyan in the White House, and several times over the past 10 to 20 years Former California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has said that he would like to change the Constitution so that he could run for president, being a non-native born U.S. resident. This just plays more into the whole globalist game of breaking down borders and making it impossible for the natural tribal backgrounds of people to be able to stay formed and to understand that sovereignty is a key ingredient to keeping your culture safe, sound, happy, and prosperous. It doesn't mean you don't cooperate with other countries, but having a foreign-born citizen as your leader and with the nuclear launch codes is something that you would consider to be insane if you talked about it during the last century. The cartoon of the month looks like this: Time to Leave. In the Chinese newspapers, they have a lot of cartoons and a lot of articles on U.S. warships within 12 nautical miles of what they call Chinese territory. Now, that's not the case, because we all know that these warships were in international waters, and the Chinese warships that were in actually international waters off from Alaska, it's all legal. It's not a problem. Yet you won't read anything in the Chinese newspapers about the visit to the coast of Alaska. You'll only see U.S. warships being aggressors in international waters that they claim are Chinese, when there's other countries in the region that are, of course, welcoming the U.S. warships. They're afraid of what China is doing. They're afraid of China's global ambitions, not just in Asia, but beyond. And they want their big brother to come in and survey and possibly protect. The rhetoric will continue to push the CHICOM agenda with the people of China to manipulate their feelings, to take the pressure off from Xi Jinping's failing economy. And they could take this all the way as the lemmings in China, the over 1 billion people, will change their thoughts away from a troubling economy and begin to have misgivings and imaginations towards war with the West. This is PSYOP 101. This is communist propaganda. And in the mainland China here, it's working. As we know, just hours ago, President Obama announced that special forces from the United States military will be entering Syria. And this is unfortunate news, of course. And meanwhile, China proposes four-step initiative to help solve Syrian crisis. Likewise, Russia is solving the problem by doing what else? Killing terrorists. They've identified the terrorists, they're killing terrorists. And meanwhile, the West, the United States and its allies, are not even fully identifying terrorists, and certainly are not killing them. And we all know why, because the agenda of the so-called terrorists is the agenda of the Western secret military and a co-op effort, really, by more than one nation. But you should know this, that basically the solutions are coming out of Russia and China regarding this matter. And sending special troops, special forces into Syria to be carved up by superior firepower is a powder keg waiting to explode. For the multiple time over the past years, it seems like the other nations in the world are presenting real solutions to the problem, and the United States is still playing games with, unfortunately, the young men and women of the U.S. military that are innocent in this matter and sent to a conflict in which they should have no business in. This coming right out of the funny pages, a laugh a minute here. China's sexy spy is a big threat as MI6 fear honey traps. Believe it or not, David Cameron and the rest of those blokes over there in Britain are really concerned about these Chinese spies, these mama-sans who are dressed to kill and now posing a greater threat to national security than the Islamic State terror group. Believe it or not. These honey traps have already caused some problems in Great Britain and in other regions throughout the world where MI6 is operating, and enough so that they're actually coming out and talking about it publicly. And I wasn't really aware of it being such an issue, but I would say to my brothers in Britain, my cousins over there, that you should use discretion when dealings with a Chinese lady dressed to kill. It could end up literally killing you if they are Chinese spies. China's gold imports jump from Hong Kong to 10-month high. As we enter into the holiday season in the next couple months, we see that the seasonal adjustment for gold imports are being adjusted. Its net gold imports from Hong Kong rose to 97.242 tons last month from 59.31 tons in August. This is of no surprise, but what is a surprise is the fact that India is not buying as much gold as they have been in recent years, and this is leading to lower initial gold prices. Chinese are diving in and buying it up at discount. They're very price savvy, price conscious, and we see very strong purchasing of Chinese gold as we enter into the holiday season, as they're trying to park their money in someplace that's stable, since the housing crisis and the stock market bubble have got them very concerned. We also see that pre-holiday buying being so strong in China, it could set records for this season. We'll have to wait and see for those numbers. But China's gold imports will always be strong. India is more fluctual, I guess. India sometimes is the record for the world. Sometimes they're just behind China. We'll have to keep a close eye on what happens with the rupee and the demand in India. But this story is interesting here. Rich man, poor man. Pu'er tea is now worth more than silver. Now, that's led to a huge rise in tea futures because, as you know, pu'er tea, coming from the Yunnan area of China, is a fermented tea that I've talked about many times on this channel, and now it is worth its weight in silver. That's right. The market for pu'er tea, good pu'er tea, is much higher than it has been in recent years, since I believe 2008. And it's interesting to note because in the past, China has used tea for currency. It's been very successful, as well as seashells, knives, and other types of hard asset-based currencies. Price per kilo of dry tea is reaching at a close to an all-time high here. It should continue to rise as the growing season comes to an end and it harvests. We'll see exactly where that goes. Global demand for tea is also up, and taking a cue from the slow food movement in Europe, aged pu'er is seen as a slow beverage, and it's used to counterbalance the rapid pace of modernity. And so it is a true commodity. It is something that we can really measure, and we can match it up against other commodities to see exactly what are happening with prices and the strength of currencies that are priced in those commodities. So pu'er money is rapidly changing the mountain area economy, much like oil and wealth did in 19th century Texas boom town. So we may be talking, and when it comes to the Chinese economy, when we're looking at niche markets and niche commodities to track the currency, we may be talking about pu'er futures rather than silver futures in China, because where there's this demand, the Chinese people, with being such a huge population, can really turn a market on its head. And this also means higher tea prices for yours truly, as I drink the tea quite often. So that is all for China News, October 2015.